Hello, good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, wherever in the world you are, from my home to yours. Welcome to the American Youth Symphony's 55th annual gala. It may be our 55th gala, but it's our first virtual gala. We had a fantastic concert and dinner planned for Royce Hall this month, and we've tried to bring as many of the elements from the original gala into this virtual gala as we could, including our red carpet that is happening on Facebook right now. Of course, it was disappointing to have to cancel our concerts, but we're really excited to share this cool program with you today, including a world premiere written by our very own music director, Carlos Izcaray, performed by the brand new AYS Virtual Orchestra. All of this is possible through the magic of the internet. And speaking of magic, I am delighted to introduce you to our host tonight, the fantastic comedian and magician, Matt Marcy. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks so much, Tara. It is great to be here. We're going to be having some amazing performances. We're going to auction off some great items and even do a little bit of magic. In fact, I thought we'd start with a quick trick. You see, being a magician is actually getting harder and harder because science and technology, they move so fast. We see things every day that are magic. I mean, if you think about it, even this live stream is kind of a miracle. So I always have to stay one step ahead of the science. And with that in mind, I created this first trick, because it's based on a science experiment, one that I did for the first time when I was probably in the 5th grade. Maybe you did it too. Let me show you the experiment. You take a glass and you fill it with water, maybe halfway, maybe a little bit more. And then you take a piece of paper. Any paper works. This is just construction paper. You get it nice and wet. And then the paper goes over the mouth of the glass. Have you done this experiment? Maybe some of you? This will create something called hydrostatic pressure, which means you can turn the glass over and the paper will hold the water in the glass. Now, it's pretty cool, but it's just science. It's not enough for you people. I'm a magician. I have to go further and get rid of the paper. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to blur that line between what's possible and what's not. Now, before I get started, I did want to make one quick announcement. All of our auction items are going to be online for you to auction off, for you to bid on, except for one item. That is a special item, which are passes to the world-famous Magic Castle in Hollywood. This is a pass for 4 people to go, and it will waive the door charge for you. You just have to make dinner reservations, and you can go up and enjoy an evening at the Magic Castle. One thing to note, of course, is the Magic Castle is closed during the quarantine, so you'll have to wait till after we're all out of our houses to go. But at that point, you'll have 6 months to make reservations and enjoy your night there. We will be auctioning off that during the live stream, so please get online, bid on it, and help support AYS. All right, let's get started with our musical magical gala.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, next up is our music director and maestro, who would like to give you a warm welcome from his home and introduce our next piece.
Hello everyone, welcome to the American Youth Symphony Virtual Gala. This is a little different than the original gala program I had created, which included a performance of Richard Strauss's Alpine Symphony and an American premiere of Richard Daniel Poor's Ricordanza. But the AYS musicians and I have put together something that is really special. The Spring Gala is an event that so many of us look forward to. When we realized that we wouldn't be able to gather together in person, we started thinking about what we can do. AYS orchestra members are some of the most talented musicians anywhere, so I knew we had an opportunity to do something new and creative. They are also on the front edge of technology. They're very tech savvy, so performing and recording online involved virtually no learning curve. Whether this is your first AYS concert or you've been attending for decades, I hope you enjoy the music we have created for you today. The next talented musician to perform is our principal cellist, Alex Mansour. We're very proud of Alex. He is a very talented young musician, of course a wonderful cellist, but he's also a gifted jazz pianist, able to improvise and create music on the spot, and he's also an actual composer of both concert music and for film. I know you're going to be delighted by his performance of Piazzolla. Enjoy.
think about AYS and the impact that it's had on my life, I can't help but go back to the very first time I played in the orchestra, which was November of 2018. Raiders of the Lost Ark, we performed the movie score with the movie playing above us in concert. And so I just remember after the first rehearsal with that orchestra, I was totally blown away, and I just couldn't believe the talent that every musician in the orchestra has, and how amazing the conductor was, Maestro Izcaray. That was amazing, and definitely an experience I'll never forget.
AYS has given me a ton of opportunities to grow as a musician and develop my individual sound. It's put me into a leadership role as principal oboe, and definitely helped me grow my confidence as a musician, and definitely establish myself as a professional freelancer here in Los Angeles.
One of my favorite memories was when we premiered Phil Eisler's Violin Concerto with Sarah Chang. I remember during rehearsals there would be some cameramen filming us, and just before starting the piece, our principal turned around, looked at our section and said, "Don't mess up." As a musician, performing pieces that have never been heard before, I think that greatly contributed to my technical growth. There was always something new, and there was always something unexpected. To me, AYS is amazing, young, and sophisticated. Can't wait to be back and see you all again. I hope you all stay safe.
I agree with Ani. AYS musicians are amazing, young, and sophisticated. You can really hear it in their playing too. There's just this energy that radiates from their passion for music. As you heard, the training that AYS provides is designed to challenge their technical skills, expand their repertoire, and support their development as professional leaders in the field. Something you may not know, though, is that AYS doesn't charge tuition or audition fees of any kind. In fact, we pay scholarship stipends to our musicians to support their ability to participate. And nearly all of our concerts are free to attend, so that the cost of admission isn't a barrier for audience members either. Now, if you're good at math, you may be thinking, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. If you pay your musicians, but you don't charge tuition or ticket fees, how does it work? It works because of our Gift of Music program. You can sponsor a musician to participate in the AYS Orchestra next season. You can sponsor one musician for one performance, or a whole section for a full season. You can pick your instrument, and you can even honor someone that sponsored or mentored you by naming your sponsorship after them. It really takes a village of musician sponsors to make the AYS model work. I hope you'll consider it. Please visit aysymphony.org and give the gift of music to a talented young musician today. On behalf of 100 amazing young sophisticated musicians, I thank you. We also have one artist that is crucial to every AYS gala, but she doesn't get any time on stage. I'm talking about a culinary artist, our incredible caterer, Maxine Banks. I'm thrilled that Maxine can participate in this virtual gala in two ways. First, she very generously donated a catering package to our online auction. You should check it out. And second, she's here from her home kitchen to share a delicious meal with you. I give you the fabulous Maxine Banks.
Hello, supporters of AYS. I'm Maxine Banks. I own Maxine Banks Events. And though we can't experience a sit-down meal together, I'd love to give you a behind-the-scenes look on how to prepare some of the dishes that we enjoy together at AYS Events. Grab your favorite glass of wine or dinner and enjoy. And I hope you learned something today. So we're going to make chicken piccata with asparagus risotto. You're going to start off with 2 chicken breasts, both about the same size as this one. Out of each breast, you're going to get 3 slices, just approximately like this in medallions. And then you need to wrap it either in cling wrap or wax paper. And pound. When you've done it under 2 sheets, comme ça. It's easy to just lift, hygienic, and then you're going to bring it over and you're going to prepare to cook your chicken piccata. We're going to start with the risotto first. Risotto takes anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes, depending on if you like it very creamy or some people prefer al dente. So we just put probably around tablespoon and a half of olive oil, about 1 clove of garlic, and when the oil is warmed up to probably medium level, you put approximately a cup of arborio rice. Arborio is specific to risotto, and you're going to toast the risotto rice. You're going to use here chicken stock. If you're vegetarian, you can use vegetable stock. And there you're just going to saute that gently. You can put it off to the side. I'm going to just put it off here. It takes approximately, as I said, 45 minutes. So then we can commence with the chicken piccata. Here we have half a stick of butter. We have fresh lemon juice from 1 lemon, and we have a 1/4 cup of white wine. We have capers, which you can measure as you like. Some people don't like capers, but to your preference. And then we have more chicken stock, approximately 2 cups. We've used 1 cup of arborio, so you'll see as you go along, you'll like the consistency, but it's approximately 2 cups. So you're going to place your butter in the pan, and you're going to simmer that down a little bit. Here off to the side, we have the chicken that you prepared and previously pounded. You're going to have a little solution here of plain flour, just all-purpose, with just pepper. So you're going to place, just dust your chicken. You can leave it there for the moment. You've got your butter there and it's boiling down. In the butter, you're going to put about another 2 cloves of garlic. You can put way more if you love it, but 2 is about standard. You've got your 2 chicken breasts, so easy to remember. Give it a nice dust of seasoned flour, and then you've got your nice pounded chicken breast. You're going to drop it into the butter. We're going to check our risotto. You can see the water has gone almost down. So we add some more solution of the chicken stock, and we continue to cook that. At this point, your chicken is going to be just perfectly colored. So we pour first the chicken stock. You see the pan sizzling. What that does is it's going to start to thicken into a sauce because of the flour coating on the chicken. Your white wine and the lemon juice. And then you're just going to turn each of the piccata so that the flour sauce cooks down a little. And you're going to cook that for probably, I'd say about 4 or 5 minutes extra. And for my taste, I love capers. So I'm going to put the equivalent of 2 tablespoons into mine, plus a bit. So there you have your lemon chicken piccata. You let your sauce go down a little bit in a few minutes, and then in the interim, I'm going to give the risotto a stir. Whilst this is happening, I'll season with some black pepper, again to taste. At this stage, I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup of white wine. I use Rosalind, it's a slightly sweeter wine for this dish. We'll turn it down to simmer again, and then whilst we're doing that, we're going to continue, and we're going to just blanch the asparagus. And what I'm going to do just to kick it up a little bit is some of the tips I'm going to add to the risotto. The asparagus will cook for probably, let's say approximately 5 minutes if you like them al dente, which they really should be eaten that way. Your piccata is finished. Your risotto is going to be coming up here pretty soon. So we have everything complete. We have our risotto, creamy risotto with the asparagus. Our asparagus to dress. And our chicken piccata. Bon appetit.
Wow, that looked delicious, huh? Okay, it's time for a little bit more magic. You know, people ask me all the time as a magician, they say, hey, magic's a lot of fun, but is there any practical use to it? And in all these years, I've only found one practical use, and it involves this. Dental floss. Do you floss? Yeah? Be true to your teeth, or they'll be false to you. Here's the problem with dental floss, at least for me. When I get to the end of a roll, I end up with a small piece. It's a little too short to use, so I throw it away. It's a waste of floss. I've come up with a solution. What you do is you save up those short little pieces of floss for years. Put them in the back of a sock drawer or a kitchen cabinet, something like that, until you've got about, maybe 8 or 10 pieces. Once you've got all those pieces, you take all but one. One you're going to keep separate, and the rest you're going to roll into a little ball. Now, because dental floss is waxed, it sticks together nicely. Also leaves your fingers smelling minty fresh. You keep rolling until you get all the little octopus legs of floss rolled into a ball. You take the ball of floss and the piece of floss, you stick them together and you squeeze. And if you do this right, you can get it to stay. Thank you. Here's the good part. When you have to floss, you blow, you grab the ends, and you are ready for some oral hygiene. Look at that. Perfect for after a cooking demonstration, huh? All right. I do want to mention that our auction is still going on. You can find the items on the AYS Symphony website. If you scroll down and you're on that page right now, you can bid on them. Also, don't forget the Magic Castle Pass is being bid on right now live. We will announce a winner before the end of the gala. So if you want those passes, go bid on it right now. Okay, now it's time for a word from the AYS chairman, Kevin Dretzka.
Welcome to the American Youth Symphony's first virtual gala. My name is Kevin Dretzka, and I'm chairman of AYS. During these challenging times, AYS shall adapt and continue its mission. While it would be more enjoyable seeing all of you in person, sipping non-virtual refreshments, our program today will bring some sparkle and offset the disappointments of recently canceled concerts and events. AYS will do more than survive. With your help, we shall flourish and continue to perform the greatest music at top artistry. We appreciate your support, and I hope to see each of you in person next season. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Gallia Kastner and I am the Concertmaster for the American Youth Symphony. I'm here with Philip Marten, AYS alumni and former Concertmaster for the 2015-2016 season, to learn more about how AYS prepared him for life as a professional musician. AYS has a large network of alumni working as professional musicians across the globe. Philip is currently Assistant Concertmaster at the Cincinnati Symphony. Hi Philip, thank you for joining us from Cincinnati.
Hi, Gallia. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and reconnecting with everybody at AYS. This is awesome.
I don't know if you remember me, but a few years ago in your last year with AYS, I sat next to you.
I do remember, yeah.
Yeah, you were odd, and I was just a sub at the time. Everyone
Right.
in front of me had been gone for some reason. So they put me right in front with you, and you inspired me to audition for AYS. So I have you
That's
to thank.
awesome. You were there for the whole week, right?
I was, yes.
I do remember that. Okay.
Awesome.
That was a fun week.
So we'll dive into the first question. When were you concertmaster with AYS, and do you have any favorite memories?
I was only there for a year, just the 15-16 season while I was doing a year of masters at USC. I think probably the most memorable thing for me was when we played in Disney Hall and we did a piece by Tan Dun that was like full orchestra and children's choir. And it was like this huge thing. And it was probably one of the biggest productions that I had been a part of up to that point. And of course, playing in Disney Hall for the first time feels like, oh, I finally made it. You know, it's up there with Carnegie as like one of those places where you just have to play.
How did being concertmaster of AYS prepare you for your current role as assistant concertmaster for the Cincinnati Symphony?
AYS operates more like a professional orchestra than like a youth symphony in a lot of ways, and even more like a professional orchestra than a lot of like school orchestras do. So it's one thing to go into your orchestra class, whereas with AYS, it's still educational to a certain extent, but they do treat you a little bit more like, here's the schedule, here's the program, there's a personnel manager that's on top of things. There's just a certain level of operation. Also in the variety of concerts that you do, like movie concerts. That was my first experience doing a movie concert. That was huge. Because now I do those all the time. I mean, that's a really important thing that you do not do at school.
Right.
And even down to like, I'm sure you've had the experience of them asking principals or assistant principals to do chamber music concerts or house concerts and things like that. I mean, that's something that I run into now as a professional that doesn't happen a lot at school or in, a lot of other kind of more typical youth symphonies around the country. So I think just the way they treat you and the way they operate is a nice foot in the door to what your future is going to look like.
What are some unique situations or experiences you have found yourself in as a concertmaster?
In AYS, the year that I was there was the year they were looking for a music director. And happily, they ended up with Carlos, who, as far as I know, has been doing a brilliant job, which is very exciting. And I remember when he came to audition, I thought he was fantastic. So I'm thrilled that he's there. But going through the process of having a different conductor for almost every single concert was really interesting, especially in a leadership position, because you have to learn how to communicate with each one of them over like starting new each and every time. And which again goes back to your question about how that prepares you, because you have lots of guest conductors in professional orchestras, and that's a very useful tool.
What advice do you have for musicians training for concertmaster roles?
Well, practice. Practice. Go practice.
Practice, yeah. Practicing, concertmaster excerpts, incorporating.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. I mean, I think concertmasters have to be very well-rounded.
Yeah.
I'm not even convinced that concertmasters are always, often they are, but they're not always the best player in the orchestra, but they're always the most well-rounded. They always kind of have a great sense of musicality and a great understanding of the music and a great understanding of communicating. Yeah, okay, so practicing is the number one most important thing, but also stepping away from the violin and looking at the music, I think is equally important. And I shouldn't reduce that factor, because you have to look at the score. You have to pay attention to what's happening. You have to know how to solve problems, musical problems, and not just technical ones. So I think approaching both of those kind of tracks is equally important, but practice.
Every day.
Well, most days.
Whatever you can. Thank you so much, Philip, for joining us today. It was an absolute
Yeah, thank you.
re-meeting you again, and we are wishing you luck and safety and health.
Oh, same to you. It was an honor.
Thank you so much.
Geometric Unity is an orchestral piece that was conceived, composed, recorded, and put together all for the virtual gala of AYS. It was done during the coronavirus pandemic and is meant to be a reflection of the role of music in society, even when we are in a lockdown. I was, at the time of composition, exploring quite a bit with harmonies that could take us to a different sound world, but that would be at the same time very palatable for the contemporary ear. I was very influenced by certain works of Arnold Schoenberg, like Verklärte Nacht, but I wanted to do it with a rich sound that was, in a way, my own, at least from a harmonic perspective. I was also very inspired by some of the internet postings of musical sensation Jacob Collier that I'm a huge fan of. And then from a more intellectual point of view, I was very influenced by reading the theory of geometric unity by the American mathematician Eric Weinstein. I just felt these were ignitions of inspiration, and from there I just took off to write a piece that was for a 20 plus number of virtual orchestra, and it was treated very much like the whole ensemble, but also I wanted to highlight our fantastic fellows. So you will see that it has a lot of soloistic and chamber-like dynamics within the scope of the work. It starts with the sound of Weinstein's observers, a sort of new way of looking at reality and time, etc. Something I don't really understand that well, but I do appreciate the beauty in such mathematical equations. But then we take everything on a different ride, sort of expressive, trying to see what the orchestra can do. I hope that you enjoy. It is meant to be a brief statement of love through music. It is a nod to many, many influences, all the composers' sound worlds that have influenced me at some point. It goes without saying that the greatest inspiration for this project is the musicians themselves, our fellows, all 20 plus of them, and the others who were not able to participate in this particular project. I am so proud of what they have done, all the effort that they have put into this project, and what they have given our worldwide community with their fantastic performances. I hope that you look at their individual names, because I consider them musical Olympians. And I know that they're very, very hungry to tackle on the challenges that we face. And it is with them, our future, that we're able to galvanize society, to come back together. This is a message of hope for everybody on behalf of AYS. Thank you so much to all the musicians, to all the staff that made this possible. So, without further ado, Geometric Unity.
Bravo, maestro, and bravo to the musicians. That was incredible. How do you feel?
Proud. I'm just very proud of everybody. Proud of the musicians who were brave and artistically driven, wanting to share music, and they dove right into this very, very challenging process that was in a way very unique to all of us, to be making music from our individual part, but trying to go for a sense of unity together as an orchestra, but at the same time treating the virtual stage as an opportunity, to try different things. And the staff, all of you, everybody who helped me through this whole process, I'm just delighted, very happy.
Well, it's really beautiful, and I've been sort of with you along the way to see how it's been made. It's been an incredibly short timeline. I think as soon as we knew that the rest of our season was canceled, you called me up and said, I have this crazy idea, and it was like, go, 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 figure it out as you go along, and it's pretty cool. I think in this spot in our gala timeline, we were going to be talking about next season. We don't really know how things are going to play out with the social distancing, if we'll be back in the concert hall. We do have our dates on hold with Royce Hall, but we're sort of feeling it out and seeing how it happens. But I think there may be more technologically driven virtual activities in our future either way.
Well, Tara, I'm looking at the beautiful instruments behind you, that violin, the electric guitar, the saxophone. Those are expressions of technology. Those are technological means through which we can express ourselves. Some of us might not have a nice voice, but we're able to sing through these instruments. So we're always finding ways to connect through this magical art that is music. And if we are having to be on this, let's call it voluntary sort of house arrest, the lockdown, and having to social distance, that shouldn't stop the creative process. The feeling of, let's say, uncertainties that we don't know what is going to happen, but that should not be a halt, a total halt on inspiration or even joy and hope. I am I am convinced that we will pull through this, and yes, perhaps this pandemic forces us to explore this technological stage, to bring it closer to us. I don't think it replaces the concert hall. Of course it doesn't, and I very much look forward to performing with our musicians, and perhaps even this piece in the full symphonic version. But yes, while we are at this stage, I feel that, and we felt that it was best to just bring the other kinds of technologies into the mix. And so in a way, it's an expansion of what an orchestra can do.
Yes, and we're very lucky that you have had this sort of rumbling around in the back of your head for a while, and when all of the concert dates and sort of expectations and rules were wiped away and the slate was clean, you said, let's do this, let's go. And then our musicians are incredibly talented, and they're already, most of them are in school right now learning about like the new technologies and the new ways to bring music to people by recording and going online. So they were already ready to go. There wasn't really a learning curve there. So it's been really cool to just see this come together.
Well, that's exactly it. And you mentioned their proximity with technology. They're very tech savvy. And that means that they also know that there are ways to connect. And they are the musical first responders when we were talking about what could we do to share our art form. Of course, there are other kinds of orchestral vignettes being shared where they do non-repertoire. But in this case, we wanted to explore the possibility of creation, of inspiration within the constraints that we have. And that's why new content sort of took precedent here. It was the first thing that we wanted to put as an orchestral composition. And it's music of literally of our times. And technology played a huge role in being able to bring us together through music.
Well, congratulations again. I'm just so proud of you and the musicians, and to be able to be a part of this. Bravo.
Thank you very much, and bravo to you as well. Cheers.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to write a new piece of music for an orchestra? Sometimes AYS plays music that was written hundreds of years ago by the masters like Beethoven and Mozart. Sometimes we play newer music, even by composers that are still alive today. AYS has a special project. It's been developed and sponsored by our board member, Peter Mandel, and our advisory council member, Sarah Code Mandel. It's called the Korngold Commission Project. Through this project, AYS commissions film and media composers to work with world-class solo artists to create new pieces. Today, we have a conversation with some of our Korngold Commission artists, composer Chris Bowers, composer Phil Eisler, and violinist Charles Yang. The conversation is moderated by Star Parodi, who herself is an accomplished film composer, director, and arranger, and she currently serves as the president of the Alliance for Women Film Composers. This was a rich conversation, and we'll release the whole thing soon, but today we just have a few highlights. Please enjoy this look into the process of creating a new piece for orchestra.
I just wanted to tell you guys that I just loved both of your concertos so much. They were both so beautiful. I was there in person to hear Phil's. I wasn't there in person to hear Chris's, but I've listened to them both multiple times, and they're just gorgeous. And so I just wanted to, I have so many things that I want to ask you guys, but I just, what inspired the concerto? Because I noticed one was, I think, Concerto for J.E., right?
Yeah,
Phil.
my grandma.
And Chris's was To My Younger Self. And I wondered if you guys could each talk about just what inspired that title and what you were thinking of, because both your pieces are so visual, you know, and they just brought so many images to my mind when I was listening to them.
Sure. Well, JE stands for Jean Eisler, who was my grandmother, and she was a huge inspiration for me musically and just in my life. You know, when I was born in Prague, and at that time, Czechoslovakia was still, first of all, it was still a country, and we were behind the Iron Curtain. So she had left Prague at that point. She was English, but she had left Prague, and she kept a room in our apartment, and that room had a grand piano in there, and that grand piano was really the beginnings of how I discovered music. So whenever she would come to Prague, I say improvise together. I think I was just banging the piano, and not really like now, to be honest. And we'd tell stories, and she'd make some story up, and I'd start banging the piano away with it, and she gradually taught me to play a little bit. And so when she passed away about 3-4 years ago now, it was one of those things where, you know, my whole life I'd been listening to her stories about her life, and she led an extraordinary life. It was, you know, obviously with a lot of stories about the war and everything that happened in between, the rise of communism. It was like a real sort of potted history lesson in a way. So when it came to writing the concerto, I think for the longest time, nobody had ever said to me, write whatever you want. And when they did,
yeah, right?
I don't know what to write about. I mean, I've written for film for such a long time that I found myself really lost without a story to write about or write to. So I decided, and she had just passed away at that point. It just seemed like a fitting sort of thing to write about.
Well, Chris, I'd love to hear about your inspiration. And I just felt like there was such a childlike quality, you know, in the different sections of your piece, and which really was very buoyant to me and just so uplifting. And I just wondered, you know, I actually, when I was a kid, I wrote a note to my older self.
Nice.
and, you know, like just saying, hey, you know, and I just wonder, you know, what inspired you, and was it something that you were writing to your younger self, or to?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of it, you know, then in the music came to playing with the aspect of time. And so like in the first movement, the Charles's part is very, it's a lot more rigid than it gets later. And you know, the feeling of time is very controlled and very metered. And then the second movement, it feels like time is a bit suspended and there's a lot more emotion and free flowing. And the cadenza actually happens in the second movement. And this whole thing, I also, because of how much I've been just loving learning about storytelling and narrative in film music, this whole thing I've also mapped against the hero's journey. So Charles almost functions as like the hero in this story of like, you know, the realization of how to get through this trying time in life. And so I was super mathematical and like probably didn't end up being helpful at all, but I tried to like actually time it out as though like there are certain points where we're breaking into the second act, and now this is the midpoint. The cadenza actually happens at the midpoint in the whole piece, and then breaking into the third act. And so by the third movement, the solo part feels like it's no longer restricted by the feeling of time, and it's kind of free flowing and playing over bar lines and doing all these things that feel like, even though it's that last movement is pretty fiery, and I still can't believe Charles played it. But it is supposed to be that feeling of like, you know, confidence and excitement amidst this chaos that's still there, but now being able to have control of self amidst the chaos.
Wow, amazing. It's beautiful. That came through.
You know? Cool. That's good to hear.
Well, I want to ask Charles and Chris and Phil too, something about the collaboration process, because I know, you know, as a pianist, and Phil, I know you're multi-instrumentalist too, but I know your grandmother played violin. I don't know if you do, but I know it's so different, you know, to write something for another instrument that feels right on your instrument, but you have no idea if that other person is going to be able to play it. And I wondered, you know, from Charles's point of view, you know, how much did you feel, you know, the collaboration that you and Chris did together? Did you work out the cadenzas and
learning another kind of language within a composer's writing, you know, and that for Chris is some you know, jazz phrasings that are different on piano than violin. So I remember in the cadenza, there's a section that Chris wrote that it just goes between, it just kind of flows between different keys. It just modulates, and it's awesome. It's really great. But I was having trouble. I was like, how do I make this sound not violinistic, you know? And we went back and forth on that, and he actually played on the piano the way he felt it, and it's a great learning process to try to mimic that, but also keep your own voice with your instrument. So, and I think it turned out pretty good, that section. So I'm pretty happy about that. So it was a great process.
Well, Chris, what was your collaboration process with the orchestra and with Carlos and with, you know, the whole process of rehearsals? And
we had, I think, Charles, we had 3 rehearsals with
with dress, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think I knew that I could trust Charles and Carlos and the way that they were going to. I think once we had that first rehearsal and the first time we played through, and Charles and Carlos weren't freaking out, I think that I decided to internalize and hide how much I was freaking out on the inside.
Carlos is very calming, isn't he?
What's that?
Carlos is very calming, isn't he? Like,
yeah.
we did the first one, I was going, oh God, I've written a nightmare. And he went, it's gonna be fine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's so incredible. Just as I knew immediately that I needed to you know, as composers, we sometimes have another conductor that's conducting our sessions, and yet we still feel like we can step in and say like, hey, actually, you know, second violins come out a little bit more here, or, you know, having a bit more of a say in how the rehearsal is run, essentially. And I think with this, I immediately was like, this is not my space of forte, and let me just kind of back up and let the professionals handle this, essentially.
I wanted to ask you guys if you felt at all constrained by the specific you know, rules or perceived rules of writing a concerto.
I think so to answer your question, yes, there was a lot of studying, and there was a lot of studying the form as well as, you know, which pieces really spoke to me and which ones I really fell in love with. And really, I think if I hadn't thrown those rules out the window at some point, I would have never written anything. I think in some senses it was great to be constrained, actually, at least a little bit, because it was already, you can write whatever you want. Then thank God it was at least, but it has to be a violin concerto. Otherwise I'd have been running around with sousaphones and vacuum cleaners. And
yeah.
At some point I had to just kind of go, I just had to follow whatever the voice in my head is saying. And I know for that reason, and because it was the first piece for the stage that I'd written, I think, honestly, it's a little schizophrenic as a piece, stylistically. It was a lot more schizophrenic before I down. I remember the first time I did put the mock-up center and just the piano, and I sat there. It's amazing when you play something back with somebody else sitting in the room. And, you know, we're very used to that as film composers, and it never becomes less terrifying, at least for me. I don't know about Chris. Every time I play somebody my music for the first time, I'm just like, oh, kill me. And I remember playing it back with my assistant at the time, who's a Berkeley grad, a piano student. And so I'm always, you know, super self-conscious about what somebody else thinks of it. And I played it end to end, and then I just looked at him and I went, it's a mess, isn't it? And he went, I went, yep, that's all I need to know. It's just stylistically, it was all over the place. You know, it was minimal in one place and romantic in another, and it still is to a certain degree, but, you know, it became more, I think I completely rewrote the third movement after that.
Well, Chris, did you also feel like you felt freedom within the form, or did you feel constrained, or were you, you know?
Yeah, I felt really free. I think one of the first things I did was reach out to my composition teacher at Juilliard and ask, you know, basically say, I'm writing a violin concerto and I have no idea what I'm doing. What do I do? It reminded me of I remember when I was a freshman in high school, I went to an arts high school, and that's like when I first really started studying jazz on a very serious level. And my freshman year in high school, playing a simple standard, like a song called There Would Never Be Another You. It's a very simple jazz standard, but I'll never forget the feeling of playing through that song. And I knew that every single chord I needed to play in my left hand, because if I didn't, I would be lost forever. And it took, you know, that first year or so to realize that, oh, this whole section is the A section, and that section repeats. So I don't need to remember this, you know, these 16 bars and 16 different chords. I can remember this whole form. And then it unlocks something, because then it's like, oh, I can improvise over this whole section, thinking of it as one way, as opposed to, you know, it just unlocks something listening to jazz and understanding when I'm listening to Miles Davis live at the Plug Nickel, if they're playing Cello by Starlight, if I know that song really well enough that I can hear where they are in the form, no matter how out they get and no matter how abstract everything becomes. And I had a similar experience with this studying process, where I took basically about like 10 concerti that I was like taking the scores and like marking the themes, and then marking the secondary themes, and then looking at when those things, and I just had this aha moment where I was like, wait, like, this is what it is. There's a formula to this whole thing. Like, it's not random. and that feeling was so incredible. I mean, the thing that my teacher said that I really appreciated, Briggs, at the end of that letter is he said that, never forget that Ravel, I think it was Ravel, wrote a note to somebody saying that I'm almost finished with my concerto. I have the structure now. I just have to fill in the themes.
Did you have a feeling when you were working with the orchestra that you were working with a group of young people? I mean, or did it feel like you were working with a professional orchestra?
For me, it was sort of the best of both worlds, actually, because I certainly never felt like these are students and I've got something to show these guys, because they could have shown me a billion things I would have had no idea about. But what was great about it was they had that enthusiasm of people that are just embarking on that journey and they're learning a new piece of music. And several of them came up to me afterwards and were really complimentary about certain things, and were, and that actually gave me, because I was probably more terrified than they were. So, they actually gave me a bit of that courage. And they play like professionals. I mean, they play to an amazingly high standard, but they lack a bit of that jadedness that comes with a tenured orchestra that's been around for years and years and years and decades, and a new composer or a new conductor turns up and you get met with a lot of eye rolls like, oh god, narrator, great. They were just like, oh cool, they sunk their teeth into it, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, these kids, they're sorry, not I mean, they're young professionals that are, right. Like you said, they lack that jadedness, and it's exciting for them. It's really exciting for, I'm guessing, the composers and also as a soloist to work with these kids, because they're putting this piece to life just as much as we are, and they're giving it a voice, and they're excited to do so. They're not waiting to play the standard. They're breathing, and they want to premiere this. They want to put this thing to life. So that's what I think we felt during our whole time there. At least I felt this, that these amazing young musicians were breathing life into that piece, and it was magical. Yeah. And Carlos certainly helped.
Well, thanks again for joining us for this year's first ever virtual AYS Gala. Before we go, I want to share one more piece of magic with you. Because when people see me do sleight of hand, they always ask me the same question. Do they let you gamble in Vegas? And that makes sense. Card cheats and magicians, we use a lot of the same techniques, so it's a reasonable question. But I thought tonight I might actually share some of the card cheating techniques that I've learned by becoming a magician with you. You may find this interesting. We're going to make it easy and not use an entire deck. We're just going to use 3 cards. And I'm going to teach you 3 different techniques. Okay? The first is called the gambler's crimp. It's where you put a little bend in a card so that you can see it again as you're going through the deck. It allows you to find the card you want. It's very subtle. I'll give you an example of the gambler's crimp. Now, if you have special glasses, you can see the bend. Yeah. The next move is called the gambler's notch. It's where you put a little nick or a tear in the side of a card so you can feel that card again as you're going through the deck. Again, very subtle. This is the gambler's notch. Looks like this. Now, if you read Braille, you can feel that. Yeah. The last move is the most important. It's a way of marking your card with 2 others by linking them together. It looks like this. Now, when you need your card back, it's just as easy to get them apart. You just give it a fold and a little bit of a blow, and they melt right apart. One more time at full speed. This is the gambler's link. Like that. Now, of course, you don't want to get caught this way. That's how they figure out you're cheating. If you have to get out of this in a hurry, you can just tear the cards and remove yours. But of course, if you get caught this way, that's a problem. That's when you need to use a little bit of magic. You give it a blow, restore those cards, and that's the way you cheat with magic. Speaking of magic, you've just got a few minutes left to get your bids in for my Magic Castle passes. If you go onto our Facebook page or onto aysymphony.org at 6 p.m. Pacific tonight, the winner of those passes will be announced. So get your bids in, and good luck. All right. Now it's time for one final word from our Executive Director, Tara Esquivel.
I hope you're as inspired as I am after seeing these fantastic performances and hearing directly from our artists about the impact that AYS has had on their lives and careers. And there's even more great stuff happening that we didn't get to cover today, like our new YouTube coaching videos from our Sheristan Middle School program. In fact, I'd like to read an email to you now that we received from one of our Sheristan coaches this week. She says, "Hi everyone. I just wanted to submit my timesheet, but also say thank you again. Without your creativity or compassion during this unique time, I would have been completely out of work this month. Instead, I was provided a wonderful opportunity to not only educate myself in a new way of doing things, but also for our students. This is how your donation will be used, providing valuable opportunities to AYS musicians. The concert halls may be dark right now, but AYS is not shutting down. We're finding new ways to keep our programs and musicians active. If you see the value in what we're doing, please donate now and help us continue innovating and supporting the future of classical music and the futures of our musicians." We have one more performance for you from the 2020 Virtual Gala from AYS pianist Rosalind Wong. On behalf of the musicians, staff, and board of the American Youth Symphony, thank you for tuning in today. And I extend a deep and heartfelt thank you to all of you who have donated. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to have created and shared this content with you today. I wish you a pleasant evening, good health, and great music. Good night.